My sister filed a fake restraining order against me, using forged texts from a hard drive I helped her back up. She weaponized old lies, spliced audio, and even got our mother to co-sign the story, until I found her trespassing on a house she didn't own. The surveillance footage, the hard drive, the forged screenshots. I brought it all to court and watched her unravel. If this story hits close to home, don't forget to like and hit subscribe for more jaw-dropping Reddit stories. Drop a comment if you want me to help with creating these stories. Hi, I'm Jake, 32, and last month my life blew up when I found out my little sister Emma had filed a restraining order against me using fake texts she forged from an old hard drive I helped her back up. It started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. Unknown number. Normally I'd let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. "Is this Jake Collins?" the voice said. "This is Officer Reeves with the county clerk's office. You've been named in a protective order filed this morning. You need to come in to receive the documents." My first thought was that it was spam, a scam, some new twist on the "you missed jury duty" trick, but something in his voice was too real, too practiced. I asked who filed it. The line went quiet for a beat. Then, "Emma Collins says she fears for her safety." My mouth went dry. I was sitting in my office, the one I'd built from the ashes of my old life, with the new name on the wall, the new rules, the new everything. I hadn't spoken to Emma in over 6 months, hadn't seen her since the day I slammed the front door on our old house and walked away with the deed, the documents, the proof. Since I showed her lies in print and let the silence do the talking. And now she was claiming I was a threat. I drove straight to the courthouse, parked in a loading zone like I was on fire. The woman behind the glass slid the envelope under the window like she was passing me a verdict. Inside was the filing, 3 pages of pure fiction. According to Emma, I'd been harassing her by text for weeks, threatening her, stalking her. She claimed I followed her car once, showed up outside her gym, and sent dozens of unhinged voicemails. I almost laughed, except I didn't, because I recognized the messages. The text screenshots, word for word, the fake ones she'd doctored years ago, the ones I found buried in her old hard drive and exposed during the reunion. And the voicemails, the same clipped-together Frankenstein audio I'd played on my tablet in front of the entire family. She had recycled the same garbage I'd already proven fake. But here's the thing. Outside a family living room, it's not so easy to prove what's false. Courts don't work on vibes, they work on documentation. And Emma? She had plenty. Dozens of screenshots, audio files, a sworn statement from a witness, my mother. That was the part that hit like a gut punch. My mother had co-signed it, swore under oath that she'd seen me lash out, that she feared for Emma's safety, that she'd seen signs of obsessive behavior, going back years. The same woman who'd stood silent while I paid off her debts. The same woman who let her daughter post my house to Instagram and pretend it was hers. I stood in the courthouse hallway, holding those lies in my hand, and realized something I hadn't let myself believe until that moment. This wasn't over. This was war. I walked out of the courthouse in a fog, envelope in hand, the weight of it more than paper. My lawyer, Denise, sharp, ruthless, the kind of woman who once made a Fortune 500 exec cry in mediation, called me back within 10 minutes of my voicemail. She didn't waste time. "She's banking on you being too stunned to fight," she said, "which is why we're going to move fast. Emergency response, counter evidence, digital forensics, everything. You still have the hard drive?" I told her yes. The same one I found in my storage unit all those months ago. The one Emma forgot she ever backed up. The one filled with her homemade propaganda, fake texts, spliced audio, doctored emails, and folders labeled "for court" and backup stories. Like she'd been planning this arc since season 1. "Get it to me by noon," Denise said. "I'll have our digital guy do a full verification. And Jake, don't talk to her, don't respond, don't post, don't even breathe in her direction. She's baiting you." And she was. That night, Emma posted a selfie on Instagram. Tear-streaked cheeks, captioned, "It's hard to protect yourself when the person hurting you wears a mask of kindness." Comments exploded. Her friends, old classmates, people I hadn't thought about in years. "She's so brave. Men like that deserve to rot." I always knew something was off about her brother. Then came the DMs. From strangers, from people I did know, from my goddamn high school art teacher. One message read, "I hope you lose everything." She's finally speaking her truth. Speaking her truth. That was the problem. No one cared if it was true. They cared if it felt true. Emma played the victim like a Tony Award winner, and I was the perfect villain, stoic, withdrawn, no public presence, no dramatic rebuttals. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just about revenge. This was about erasure. Emma couldn't stand that I'd slipped from her grasp, that I'd built something she couldn't touch. So now she was rewriting the story with herself as the wronged heroine and me as the monster who stood in the way of her dream home, her Instagram perfect life, her golden narrative. But I wasn't standing in the way. I was coming straight through it. Denise called again the next morning. We found inconsistencies in the metadata, timestamp mismatches, editing software artifacts. It's not airtight yet, but it's good. If we can push for discovery, she'll fold. Will that happen before the hearing? I asked. Not likely, but we'll file for a continuance. And Jake, if she's really desperate, she'll make a mistake soon. People like your sister can't help themselves. And she was right. Because 2 days later, Emma did something incredibly stupid. She texted me. Not a threat, not a plea, a selfie, in my old house. Barefoot again, wine in hand, same smirk, same pose from the reunion. Captioned only, "Miss this place." I stared at it for a full minute. Checked the date, the time. She had no idea I had surveillance installed. Not the cameras she knew about, the real ones, hidden, silent, synced to a cloud account she couldn't access. And there she was, on footage, trespassing inside a property I no longer owned. She didn't even know it had sold again, but I did. Because the new buyer? She was a client, a quiet investor who'd used my agency to vet the property. She'd agreed to let the cameras run, just in case the former owners tried to pull anything. I texted the footage to Denise. 10 minutes later, she called laughing. "We're not just going to win this case," she said. "We're going to burn her story to the ground." The day of the hearing arrived with clouds. Not storm clouds, more like a heavy gray sky that couldn't decide whether to rain or smother. I stood outside the courthouse, suit pressed, documents in hand, calm in the way you get after a car crash. No more shock, no more panic, just cold, methodical stillness. Emma was already inside. I saw her through the glass doors, seated with her lawyer, an eager type, mid-30s. Too polished. The kind of guy who probably thought he was saving a woman from a monster. I almost pitied him. Almost. Denise met me at the steps, handed me the updated file. "We've got everything ready. Hard drive logs, metadata analysis, IP tracebacks, and that little gem," she tapped the folder, "of her wandering around someone else's property like she owned it. This doesn't just exonerate you, Jake, it proves malice. Think the judge will see it? He's seen worse," she said. But I also added a little something else. I raised an eyebrow. She smirked. "You'll see." We stepped into the courtroom. Emma didn't look at me, but I saw the flicker of recognition that I hadn't flinched. I wasn't unraveling. I wasn't broken. I was ready. The judge, a stern-faced woman with a spine like steel cable, called the hearing to order. Emma's lawyer launched first. Words like intimidation, ongoing emotional harm, and digital stalking flew across the courtroom. He submitted printed screenshots of texts, grainy audio transcripts, and her sworn affidavit that I had become obsessed and unhinged after losing the family's support. Support. That was rich. Then Denise stood. She didn't raise her voice, didn't pound the desk. She simply slid a hardbound binder across the judge's bench and said, "Exhibits A through M, Your Honor," including authenticated metadata showing digital manipulation, voice splicing inconsistencies verified by our forensic analyst, and she tapped a flash drive. Surveillance footage from the home in question showing Ms. Collins trespassing after transfer of ownership. The judge's eyes narrowed. She inserted the drive. Footage played. Emma walking barefoot through the marble entryway, sipping wine, opening drawers, talking to herself like she was planning a remodel. The date and time code stamped at the bottom. "Ms. Collins," the judge said slowly, "you were not aware this house had been sold again?" Emma blinked, then turned to her lawyer, then to me, then back to the judge. I thought," he said. "Who said?" "My dad. He said it was still, he said it didn't count if it wasn't a family transfer." Denise pounced. "So your father misled you into believing you still had rights to a house sold, twice, through verified escrow, which you then entered uninvited and used as leverage in a false harassment claim." Emma's lawyer scrambled. "Objection!" "Overruled," the judge snapped. The rest of the hearing moved quickly. The evidence was overwhelming. Every doctored screenshot came apart under scrutiny. Every audio file failed forensic verification. The timeline didn't hold. The claims unraveled. And then the judge said it. "This was an abuse of the legal system, designed to intimidate and damage the respondent. I'm not just denying the protective order. I'm referring this to the DA's office for review." Emma gasped. And then Denise hit her final note. "One more thing, Your Honor. The respondent would like to submit a formal request for a no-contact order. We believe Ms. Collins poses a continued threat through digital defamation and fraudulent activity." "Granted," the judge said, without hesitation. I turned once, just once, to look at Emma. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, with disbelief, like she truly hadn't considered the possibility that I could win. Outside, the air had shifted. The clouds hadn't moved, but somehow it felt lighter. "They'll scramble now," Denise said. "She'll probably go full PR mode. Your parents might try a sympathy campaign, but it won't matter." "Why not?" "Because now," she said, smiling, "they've been exposed. Not just to you. To the law, to the record, and the one thing people like that hate more than losing is being seen," I finished. She nodded. I exhaled for the first time in hours, maybe days. War wasn't over. But the first battle? I didn't just survive. I set the field on fire. 2 days after the hearing, I got a call from my grandfather. Not a voicemail, not a text, an actual call. It lit up my phone like a memory I hadn't decided whether to keep or erase. I didn't answer right away. Let it ring, watched the name flash, considered what it might cost to pick up. Then I did. "Jake," he said, voice rough, steady. I heard. Of course he had. News travels fast in broken families. He didn't ask questions. He didn't say sorry. He just said, "I'm proud of you." That meant more than I expected. More than I'd admit. But the moment was brief, because a few hours later the emails started. First from an old family friend, then a distant cousin, then someone I didn't recognize at all, someone who'd always looked up to Emma, and now didn't know what to think. It was clear what was happening. Emma was doing damage control. The sympathy parade had begun. Carefully worded posts about healing and boundaries appeared across her socials. A blog entry about how trauma can distort perception without ever naming names. But I knew. Every line was a bullet aimed sideways. Then came the message from my mother. Not a call. She'd stopped trying that weeks ago. Just a single line in an email with no subject. "Do you feel better now that you've humiliated her?" I stared at it for a long time, not because I didn't have an answer, but because I did. I felt nothing. No joy, no guilt, no triumph. Just air. Quiet. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel obligated to explain myself. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the file Denise had sent me that morning, the official dismissal paperwork. Signed, sealed, archived. My name cleared, case closed. Below it, a second document. Our newly filed cease and desist, pending approval. It was happening. Slowly, piece by piece, I was unhooking every barb they'd lodged in me over the years. And then something strange happened. A thank you letter arrived at the agency. Typed, formal, anonymous. Just a simple note thanking us for exposing family financial abuse, for making space for people to speak truth without fear. No signature. Just 3 words at the bottom. You're not alone. I read it twice. Then I pinned it on my wall, next to the plaque. The one that still read, "We don't work with family." By week's end, the storm had shifted. Not quieted, just changed direction. Emma went dark on social media. Her fundraiser disappeared. The GoFundMe link led to a blank page. A few curious posts popped up from people asking where the money went, but no answers came. Just silence. Until the podcast. Yes, the podcast. One of those therapy-adjacent self-help shows hosted by a woman with a calming voice and a mic worth more than my first car. Emma appeared as a guest under the name EC, but didn't exactly hide her identity. She told a carefully edited version of our story. Cold brother, toxic dynamic, abandonment. She even described a house that was promised, then stolen. The host murmured affirmations. The audience ate it up. And I listened to every word. Not to get angry, to take notes, because every lie she told into that microphone became admissible in court. Public statements, statements we could, and did, cross-reference against reality. Denise called me later. "We just got a request for records from the DA. I think they're moving forward." "Criminal charges?" I asked. "Too early to say. But they're sniffing around, and we've got breadcrumbs everywhere." It felt surreal. Watching someone try to reframe your life in real time, watching them shape a narrative and hope no one checks the receipts. But they never counted on the fact that I kept receipts. All of them. Digital trails. Backups. Emails from years ago that I archived when I couldn't afford groceries but still covered their bills. They forgot that when you build a life alone, you build it brick by brick, and every brick leaves a record. Then something happened that did rattle me. A woman showed up at my office. Not a stranger. Not a client. Emma's old college roommate, a person I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. She looked nervous, said she just wanted to talk. I offered her coffee. She didn't touch it. "I know what Emma did," she said, "and I'm sorry." I blinked. "Why now?" She pulled a flash drive from her purse. "She tried this on me, too. Years ago. Turned everyone against me. Faked messages. Got me kicked out of our program. I didn't have proof then. But I saved this." She left the drive, thanked me, and left like she'd been carrying the weight for years. I opened it later. And there it was. Another pattern, another victim, same tactics, same lies. But now we had a pattern, a history, a trail. Emma didn't know it yet, but her story had become a case file. And cases? They come with consequences. The indictment came quietly. No headlines, no handcuffs. Just a court notice delivered by certified mail. Emma was being formally investigated for filing a false police report, submitting fraudulent digital evidence, and engaging in defamation with malicious intent. 3 charges, 2 felonies, 1 very rude awakening. Denise texted me a screenshot of the docket, and so it begins. I didn't cheer, I didn't gloat. I just sat in my office, lights low, fingers steepled, and let the stillness wrap around me like armor. She'd pushed too far, for too long, and now the truth had grown teeth. The flash drive from her old roommate had tipped the balance. Combined with the doctored screenshots we'd authenticated, the surveillance footage, the podcast episode, and the hard drive timestamps, it was more than enough to paint a pattern of targeted manipulation. Emma had played the long game, But she forgot one thing. Eventually, long games end. And sometimes they end with charges. Meanwhile, the agency had grown. Word spread. Clients came in quietly. Mothers looking to break free from guilt-fueled financial traps. Sons trying to reclaim stolen inheritances. Siblings caught in cycles of forced loyalty. The work wasn't glamorous, but it was real. And every time we exposed another web of lies, I felt something inside me loosen. The plaque still hung at the door. We don't work with family. But now I was thinking of adding a third line. Because as the days passed, I realized the story wasn't just mine. There were hundreds, thousands of people like me. People who'd been used, drained, dismissed by the very people who were supposed to love them. People who had finally had enough. I got an email one morning from a woman in Vermont. She'd heard about the agency through a whisper network. Her brother had stolen her inheritance. Her parents told her to just let it go. She didn't want revenge. She wanted truth, clarity, closure. That was the word I kept hearing. And I understood now. Closure isn't a clean ending. It's a quiet one. It's when the screaming stops. Not because someone finally listened, but because you stopped explaining. And I had. Completely. One night I walked past a bookstore and saw Emma's face. A book. She wrote a memoir. Or more accurately, a fantasy marketed as healing. I walked inside, flipped through the pages. Half-true anecdotes, reimagined betrayals, and a protagonist who looked suspiciously like her, but braver, kinder, innocent. She'd published it before the indictment dropped. Bad timing, but poetic. Because next to the display, taped in the corner of the window, was a notice I hadn't expected. This title is currently under legal review. A post-it note. Small, powerful, truth for once, in black and white. 3 weeks after the indictment, Emma sent a letter, handwritten. No return address, but I knew the script. Same curved letters she used in middle school, still trying to look effortless. It was short, 5 lines. I know I crossed a line, maybe more than one. I don't expect forgiveness, just space to be better. You don't have to respond, just know I'm sorry. I didn't respond, didn't rage, didn't frame it. I folded it once, slid it into a drawer marked closed, and locked it. That was enough. By then, the agency had grown. A second office, 2 new hires, and a small program helping people escape toxic family dynamics. No social media campaigns, no marketing. Just word of mouth and people who'd finally had enough. Emma vanished from the internet for a while. Her podcast episode was deleted. Her book, yes, she tried to publish one, was pulled from shelves. Legal review pending. Truth had a way of catching up, even when no one was watching. And me? I kept going. One night I drove past the house. Not mine anymore, not theirs either. It belonged to a young family now. Lights on, toys in the yard, music playing inside. It didn't feel like a ghost. It felt like closure. I sat there for a minute. Then I drove away with the windows down and a calm I hadn't felt in years. I didn't win because I exposed them. I won because I stopped bleeding for people who called it love. This wasn't revenge. This was freedom. And freedom doesn't need an audience.